Welcome to OmniView, episode 77, Balanced News Perspectives. Today is June 10th, 2026. Let's look at the day's news from every angle. Escalating US-Iran strikes and Pakistan's renewed attacks on Afghanistan are testing fragile ceasefires and raising risks to shipping lanes and civilian safety across two continents. The United States carried out strikes on Iranian targets following the downing of a U.S. Army helicopter. Iran responded with attacks on sites in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Oil prices rose on concerns that renewed fighting could affect the Strait of Hormuz. Outlets including The Guardian described the back and forth as a rapid slide into escalation that both sides have previously managed to contain. CNBC reporting focuses on immediate market reactions and shipping risks. Both sides agree the initial trigger was the helicopter incident, yet they differ on whether the U.S. response was proportionate or whether Iran's retaliation crossed a new threshold. One side frames the response as essential to deter future attacks on its forces after a direct loss of equipment. The other side frames its retaliation as required to preserve domestic credibility and regional influence following foreign military action near its territory. Advocates on each side acknowledge that further rounds risk drawing in additional actors and raising costs for their own populations. What evidence is presented for the sequence of the helicopter incident, and which shipping routes are mentioned as most exposed? Shifting now to developments along another contested border. Pakistan launched airstrikes on Afghan border areas, killing several people, including children, according to local accounts. The action follows weeks of relative calm after earlier fighting this year. BBC reporting presents the strikes as a renewal of pressure along the contested border. France 24 notes civilian casualties reported by residents in the affected provinces. Both sides agree strikes occurred after a period of lower activity, yet they differ on whether the targets were militants or whether the action risks broader civilian harm. One side frames the operation as necessary to prevent cross-border militant activity that threatens national security. The other side frames air operations near populated areas as requiring strict limits to avoid civilian deaths. Advocates on each side acknowledge that sustained border tension has previously led to displacement and diplomatic strain. Which provinces are named in the reports, and how do local accounts differ from official statements? Meanwhile, events in Northern Ireland have drawn renewed attention. Hadi Al-Odid, 30, appeared in Belfast Magistrates Court charged with attempted murder and threats to kill after a knife attack that left the victim without his left eye. The incident triggered protests and violence in several parts of the city. The Guardian and Daily Mail both report the court appearance and the victim's injuries. France 24 describes the subsequent anti-immigrant violence and property damage. All outlets agree the attack and court hearing occurred on the stated dates, yet they differ on how directly the protests connect to immigration policy debates. One side frames the attack as a serious public safety failure tied to the suspect's entry route through the common travel area. The other side frames the protests as a broader community reaction rooted in long-standing local concerns about integration and resources. Advocates on each side note that violence against any group risks further escalation. What charges were formally read in court, and which neighborhoods saw protests? Next, we turn to election results in the United States. Graham Plattner secured the Democratic nomination in Maine's primary election. Results in several other states, including losses for some Republican incumbents, were also reported. Al Jazeera presents the outcome as part of a wider set of primary results across multiple states. Coverage notes both the winner's success and concurrent races. One side frames primary results as direct voter signals on the day of choice by party members. The other side frames interpretation with caution due to limited turnout and the fact that general election dynamics often differ. Advocates on each side agree that primary wins set the field for November contests. Which other states held primaries the same day, and what is stated about turnout or margins? Now, to really understand this story, there is something most coverage leaves out. Most reports treat primary results as simple popularity contests, yet the actual mechanism involves state-by-state rules that allocate delegates rather than a single national vote. Each state sets its own date, voting method, and delegate allocation formula, which can be winner-take-all or proportional. Candidates accumulate delegates across these separate contests until one reaches the required majority at the party convention. This structure means early states exert disproportionate influence because momentum and media attention compound after the first few results. Next time you see a headline about primary night, ask which state's rules determine the delegate split, how many delegates are still unallocated, and what historical precedent exists for comebacks after early losses. Shifting to developments in military support, the UK announced plans to assist Ukraine in manufacturing Patriot missile systems domestically. The move is linked to reduced US supplies amid other commitments. Daily Mail reporting frames the decision as a response to shifting US priorities. Coverage notes the goal of lowering Ukraine's reliance on external suppliers. One side frames technology transfer support as enabling longer-term self-sufficiency for the recipient country. The other side frames continued direct supply as addressing the immediate need for proven systems already in use. Advocates on each side acknowledge production timelines and cost constraints. Which system is named for local production, and what reason is given for changing supply patterns? Turning to developments in the automotive sector, Chinese EV maker BYD stated it aims to overtake Toyota within 5 years through battery advances, fast charging technology, and overseas expansion, including Europe. The Guardian reports the company's public target and investment plans. One side frames rapid overseas growth as resting on scale advantages in battery production. The other side frames established competitors retaining leadership through brand loyalty and existing dealer networks. Advocates on each side note regulatory and infrastructure hurdles in new markets. Which rival is named as a target to surpass, and what technology areas are highlighted? Before we go, tomorrow, watch for further updates on the UK assistance for Ukrainian missile production and any additional primary election results from other states. That wraps up today's Omni View. Remember, the best informed people read more than one perspective. If this show helps you do that, share it with someone who values fair coverage. See you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Planetarian Daily a listen. Daily breakthroughs in science, health, and longevity. You can explore the whole lineup at naranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.